Aloha! In this video, I'm going to be focusing almost entirely on the ginger that I have put in the yard so far. So, this area, the very corner of the yard, has been planted with a common edible ginger. So that's what I'm showing here. This is the process. I just went to the grocery store, found a nice big healthy one. You'll typically see what looks like green tips. I would just avoid ones that have rotten spots. I'm in a tropical warm environment. I'm just simply putting this with a thin layer of mulch on top and watering it in, and it should sprout out nicely. So beyond this, this is the top border of the yard. And what the green plants on the top right-hand side that we are, well, these are palms that are just in pots temporarily. But the plants on the top right-hand side that we're walking towards is a row of red ginger. So red ginger are pretty popular in Hawaii. They're gorgeous as they get more mature and the flowers go crazy. So there's probably about 10 of these. I did show an earlier video planting part of those out. What I'm going to do in this video is, if I know the name of a plant, I will label it. In this case, I don't know what this is. It's a heliconia of some sort. I have it somewhere in my records, but this plant was put in just as a root, as a bulb, and it has started to sprout. This is another one. This is a really, really aggressive growing plant that I put in here. I trampled it. I walked all over it. It died back, and now it's growing again. So along both edges of here, eventually it's just going to be a lot of ginger, different varieties. So this guy right here is another edible ginger. It's one that died back. It was in a pot. So I've put it in here. It doesn't look like much now. It may not look like much because it's gotten a little bit of abused, but easy to replace that. So what you're going to notice through this video is that there's a lot of ginger in this yard, ginger varieties. So this is arrowroot, which is, I believe, in the ginger family. So they make really cool plants. This has been sitting in a pot for about a year, just waiting to go in its home, which it just recently did. A little bit of a nursery area over here. Lining both sides will be, some tea plants and quite a bit of ginger and some other tropical plants. This guy was put in as a tiny cutting. It came off the top of its parent plant, which I'll show at the end of the video. It is currently being ravaged by Japanese beetles, but just keeps growing aggressively through that. Another heliconia on the right side there. So this is, I'm just going to show a quick little video of my planting of some other gingers that I'm about to show in a second. But the ongoing process in this yard, and the key factor is creating and building soil. So every weekend I get a couple of loads of mulch, and I put it into the yard. At this point, I think that I'm at about between 70 and 100 loads of mulch so far in this yard, and the soil is starting to get pretty rich. And so I can grow things like ginger really straight in this mulch on top of a rocky soil. So these are 3 plants that I put in the ground yesterday, putting down some gypsum there to add a little bit of amendment. Other than that, straight in the mulch. These are a different variety of the red ginger. They're just a pink version, and I found these for the first time at the store. I think these are pretty new, is my understanding. They're pretty new to the market, so these should grow pretty aggressively, but my general process here is planting straight into the mulch. Hopefully it's composted and well composted, and if it's not, I can amend it a little bit. I didn't really have to amend this at all. just added a little bit of calcium to it, calcium and magnesium. But water them in well, and these things will take off, absolutely take off. So overall, with this yard, I have my landscape plan calls for a lot of ginger, and so that's really what I'm doing. It's we're in a HOA with fairly restrictive planting guidelines, so it's one reason why there aren't a lot of trees. I'm keeping there's height restrictions, so I'm loading the yard for the most part with ginger, because there's a lot of them available for sale here, and I love them and think that they are pretty spectacularly nice looking plants. And so this is another thing. Those are stalks from a different Costus, a different ginger, and all I really do with a lot of my green waste is just buried in this mulch. All right, so over on this side, on the left-hand side, there are some taro, different types of taro. But right in front here, these two are golden brush. They were flowering very nicely. Then I divided them fairly mercilessly, and they've since bounced back, but no flowers at the moment. But I think these are going to be really, really nice, and very happy. So back onto the main path we go. Straight ahead, this is a heliconia. It's gotten a little bit beat up from some Japanese beetles, but is growing aggressively through that. This is a lost label. I don't know what it is. Once it starts flowering, I will know. But this, when I put it in the ground, had died back to nothing. And this aggressive growth is 3-4 months old, maybe. It was just sticks. So impressive growth. So behind my concrete footer molds here is a small division of dwarf Jamaican Heliconia. And here the labels overlapped a little bit, but this is Parakeet Heliconia. There's quite a bit of this. This is my first time growing this, and I'm pretty amazed by how aggressive this plant is growing. It's actually a little bit concerning in a way, because this was one small stalk that went in. It was a division, and it's spread out many feet now, left and right. So may turn out to be a little bit invasive. So I'll have to watch that carefully. Here's another heliconia, lost label on this one. But it is something that I bought at a show a few years ago, so I can narrow it down. I just have to wait for it to flower to know what it is. But it's growing very nicely. This was actually planted more or less directly in this rocky soil with a thick layer of compost on top. Here is maybe my favorite ginger that I have right now, is this Kiss of Death. I don't have a picture of the flower, but it has got spectacular flowers. I was worried that it was going to be too hot and bright here, but it is growing pretty nicely, and things are looking good there. Costus woodsonii, this dwarf French kiss, this thing is just flowering like mad. I've been cutting back the old stalks, and it just keeps reflowering. I divided the main plant in two, and I did it fairly aggressively, and both plants are just going absolutely crazy. So really, really happy with the production of that. These are some red gingers that I just showed there. So down on the next to the house, these are 3 coffee plants. And then we get into, unfortunately, a layer of plants that I lost the labels on. This is a golden torch, the same as I showed on the other side. But then there's 2 other Costus next to it that I lost labels on. So we'll have to figure out what exactly they are. But these are lost labels. But it's a good, fun problem to have. They're growing really nicely in the mulch, in the compost. As soon as they flower, I'll be able to identify them based on my purchases. And then right at the end of this strip here, layered in among these philodendron are the blue ginger. I've learned that it's not truly a ginger. I'm not sure exactly what that means, but still a great looking plant and should be pretty nice addition. So I'm going now to around the front of the house. And I don't have, these are all hibiscus growing, hibiscus and some palms, some lemongrass on the left-hand side. And now to the front. So this bed is kind of what I'm doing in these beds is there's a lot of tomato plants and a lot of eggplants. And the eggplant and tomato are in between the gingers that I'm trying to get up and mature. So this is a shell ginger. I bought one kind of big shell ginger and then divided it fairly aggressively into 3 parts. So that's one part. We just looked at another. So it's all 3 parts, and in between, I'm just making use of the space with eggplant and tomatoes, which I've gotten a lot of fruit off of, or a lot of produce off of, which is pretty nice. Here's another. This is the Parakeet Heliconia, and then a dwarf Jamaican Heliconia right there, with some kale, Tuscan kale, that's been producing nicely. That's a mother plant of another, and then the woodsonii. And then finally, I replanted this yesterday, and here's the video of me replanting it. It was pushed too close against this bed. So originally when I bought this plant, I bought a single plant, and it was a little bit too small to divide. So what I've done is I put it in the ground for a couple months and let it grow, which it did, and it tripled in size within, I don't know, 3 or 4 months. And look at that root growth. Crazy, aggressive growth. So now I'm going to do my really gentle technique of taking a Bowie knife and slicing in. I did this fairly carefully. I don't always do it so carefully, but I did this carefully to get some nice divisions off of it. But just dividing the plant into several pieces. I try to have as big of a rhizome as I can, so that it has some life in it when it goes into the ground. It can support itself as it develops roots. But here I got some smaller pieces and then 2 big chunks. So I'm putting it back a little bit off the base here. I'm actually I've decided I'm going to relocate this. I'll take the woodsonii that's on the top there with the Costus woodsonii, and I'm going to divide that and spread that across. But some pretty nice divisions on this variegated shell ginger, and I'm going to put it in a bed in a second, you'll see. So I'm going to put it here. I'm also going to put that other one I repotted, and I'm going to eventually divide and continue to divide and have this entire row along here just be filled with this shell ginger, so that it's a nice grouping and a nice somewhat of a hedge. So water them in well. But I hope this was enjoyable for those of you that like ginger. I love ginger plants, so I will more than likely do a lot of videos and updates on how these plants grow. I'll also focus on... Aloha, thanks for watching.